from Bristol, just over here where we are opposite the Hippodrome. For 10 years after the 2003 Iraq War, there was a vigil every week led by a woman called Lois, who was a Quaker, and every single week, all that time, they were there. People were tooting as they went past once a week, and I just think this is quite lovely to be here today in a place which is like literally right next door to where this important thing happened after the Iraq War. And God bless Lois for doing that every week, even though she was a very elderly woman, retired woman. So on to the so-called hoax. Well, only a hoax to a certain extent, because I think this virus definitely was real. What exactly it was, whether it was a man-made virus or something else, is a whole other question which the mass media do not want to touch. Except we did here on the radio in Bristol on the 7th of February, when I still had a radio programme. We talked about a report on Zero Hedge, which was saying that the virus was actually, and it was designed and drawn up by virologists in New Delhi in India, saying that the virus had two inserts. One is a SARS insert and the other an AIDS insert. And these virologists in India and the top virology department in New Delhi said that back in February. The former head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove, said the same thing around about 3 weeks or a month ago, that he believes that this is a man-made virus. It was originally called, of course, SARS-CoV-2, and the basic treatment for SARS, anyone that knows and looks up how to treat the SARS disease, the SARS virus, is something called chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, which has been basically denied to millions of people around the world who could possibly have had their lives saved by this, who caught this virus. So we're hearing a lot about disinformation. Why did this happen now? I would suggest the Syrian regime change failed. We saw that there was a complete failure to get rid of Assad. And now what the elite doing in the West is, I think they're turning their fire against people domestically here in the Western countries. So it's like the eye of Sauron has changed from Syria now to focus on us, because they're concerned about dissent here in the West and they want to clamp down on it. One of the reasons, Alex Trainer, he's a former hedge fund manager, he is basically in Monaco, but he said on our show a few weeks ago at thisweek.org.uk, he said that he believes that the pandemic was designed to be released during wartime, but that they've done it now for all sorts of other reasons. And that is interesting, isn't it? Because it's a bit like Wesley Clark when he said they want to invade 7 countries in 5 years. People know about Wesley Clark saying that, but what it tells us is quite possibly what's going on is not going to plan, and that things are being introduced which are not to plan. So one of the things obviously I want to talk about, since my show has been censored on the radio here in Bristol, is about the censorship in the mainstream press. We're hearing from the mass media that the bomb in Beirut last week is what? It's the Lebanese government's own fault. Just think about that for a minute. Is that plausible? That it's really their own government's fault that's done it, or is it an act of war? I think it's pretty obvious to me. It looks to me like destroying the main trading port of the entire country with an extremely big, devastating bomb. It's not the Lebanese people's own fault. It's a war that's been waged on Lebanon of some sort. Also, we've seen all this stuff recently about Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, what was going on there is clearly a blackmail operation they're running. Let's see what happens with that. Who knows? But the point is, what is it about? That blackmail, I certainly think, is about blackmailing people in order to start a war. Simple as that. Now Epstein has got all this information is now downloaded, and the various powerful people who went to see Epstein are being blackmailed to make sure that they play their role. My YouTube, by the way, and this is talking about, I suppose, about censorship, is that YouTube has been censoring thousands of accounts that have been there for years and years and built up many. I just Googled today, on the YouTube search, looked at the piece we did about Hinkley Power Station, nothing to do with the lockdown or anything, yesterday, and you know what? It was at the very bottom of YouTube search results. So if you scroll through all of the results on YouTube, you will then find at the very bottom of the results the interview we did last week, and I was searching for the exact titles that were in there. So YouTube are burying material, and they're also completely cancelling channels, as they did to somebody here in Bristol just a few weeks ago, who've been exposing stuff going on within the National Health Service. So without any strikes or anything, he's disappeared. And anyway, that's all on our programme that we did on Friday at thisweek.org.uk. Also, we've seen the censorship of experts. People who are experts in the pandemic have been disappeared off of the internet. People like Dolores Cahill. This censorship is in lockstep with the lockdown. What we've seen is that people who are critiquing it, experts, the very people that we really need to hear on our mass media, have been actually taken down, removed from YouTube and other platforms. Absolutely appalling that people like Dolores Cahill were taken out. She's one of the top virologists on the planet, who was in charge of all sorts of innovations. She's well worth listening to. You may well have seen what she's got to say. Another thing is Michael Callahan. Ever heard of him? Well, he's DARPA's man in Wuhan. He has been also, stuff about him has not been reported. So what was Michael Callahan up to there? We'll be hearing stuff about this on the radio too. And of course we know, don't we, Princess Diana, the assassination of Princess Diana, the assassination of David Kelly, these things that British people know very well, so there's nothing really new about this. We know that the mass media is used to control people in this way, at least what we're allowed to see and what we're not allowed to see. And even now, with people are being now driven off of the internet, which people like me have been using, but even, my show having been driven off the radio during this pandemic. So, chloroquine, SARS-CoV-2. We know what this stuff is. Hydroxychloroquine. Well, this can potentially, this can actually help people, but it hasn't been allowed really to be circulated, and it can. And lots has been censored about it. Extremely useful stuff. Okay, so what about testing? What about testing? Hello? Is that better? Is it okay? Okay, thank you. Do you want to just swap over you two? My programme I've been doing here on the radio for the last, 12 years or so here in Bristol on the community radio has now been taken off. Who knows, maybe we'll be allowed back, I'm not sure. But I do it as a volunteer. We've also got lots and lots of other aspects to all of this, which I think, so we're looking at, I suppose, at this whole thing, which is this problem, reaction, solution. But it's their solution. And I think, our solution is, effectively, we've got to think outside the box. And we've really got to just kind of take what they're saying with a pinch of salt, because we're not allowed to be being heard on the mass media. We're not being allowed to be heard on in fact, the people who are real experts are not being allowed to be heard on the TV. And we've even seen We've even seen some of the real experts in the whole country on this, including doctors, struck off from their job and now having to fight for their career, basically being driven out of the country for saying what they believe in. So all I'd say to folks is that's pretty much it. Do please try and follow what we're doing on the internet in order to try and get the truth out there, but also be aware, I think 100% be aware that we have got a serious clampdown on free press in this country. The freedom of speech, the balance is all going. We're hearing a lot about what's happening in places like China. The BBC keep telling us about how China is being censored, but it's being done here, I think, in a much more subtle way, in more of a Brave New World fashion than a 1984 fashion, which is what's happening in China. So ultimately, the goal, I think, is to kick a war off in the Middle East. It seems quite obvious to me that's what's going on with this bomb attack in the Middle East. No, it was no.
Lebanon.
In Lebanon, anyway. So they kicked a bomb, possibly a bomb, but it certainly looks like a bomb in Lebanon. So the idea is to drag, first of all, the United States, then the Russians, and then the Americans, and then the Chinese into a much wider war. I think it's just really important, folks, that we try and make sure that that doesn't happen by whatever means possible. And of course, the press is one way we can stop that sort of thing happening if people know what's going on. But if you gag the press, as has been happening, that simply won't take place. Anyway, folks, we're online at thisweek.org.uk. If you'd like to still carry following us on the internet, the other place where you will still see me just about is on the Iranian state broadcaster Press TV, where I'm doing stuff on there probably once or twice a week. But they're up against it too, because they're banned in the UK, and so you won't be allowed to see them on normal terrestrial. You have to go online to find them. And in fact, YouTube keep banning their channels, so don't bother with YouTube if you want to try and find Press TV. All in English. Anyway, folks, thanks ever so much for listening, and I'll hand back now to Piers Corbyn. My name's Tony Gosling. Thank you very much for being here, folks.
Well, yeah, thanks very much, Tony. It's great having you here. Okay, well, I don't know if, Katie, if more people want to speak or if we're going to march off now.
I'll have a quick word for you.
Okay, a few people have a word, and more, just before you come on, we're trying to raise some money, of course. I've got a large bucket here for large amounts of money. And we're giving away or selling those posters, you see, the charter, national charter and so forth. So we're trying to collect at least a tenner. I'll collect anything between £100 and £10. Okay, and we've got leaflets to give out to the public as you've got to buy, and also for you as well. So who am I introducing now? Nick, sorry, I see you're speaking, okay. Yeah, Nick, speak.
Can everyone hear me here? I'll be very, very brief here. I'm ex-Special Forces, and the reason I'm here is because of the common law courts. And I think the answer for a lot of this is to make the pyramid turn to that. We know we're the people, and the common law courts are the people. So form your own. We've done our own in Birmingham. We served Boris on the 21st of May with an unlawful lockdown paperwork, and that was done lawfully with two courts, Common Law Court of Birmingham, Common Law Court Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And we need more common law courts to come together and serve, and then form the paperwork and serve the powers that be. Thanks very much.